Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Jan Michael here. It is time. I've reviewed every game that is nominated for Game of the Year, so we're about to go into my final predictions for the 2023 DICE Awards. If you guys haven't seen my reviews of those games, please go back and give those a look-see. Check out my opinion on what each of these games does well and what I think they lack in, and you'll probably already know what my prediction for Game of the Year is just based on those reviews. So that being said, if you're just jumping into this one, no spoilers, let's just go right on into the predictions. Let's go ahead and get started with Outstanding Achievement in Animation. Now, I'm not going to go too into detail with every single category because then this video would be too long. I'll try to keep it brief. So for animation, I have to go with Cuphead, The Delicious Last Course. I think if you set all the games side by side, it's the animation that really attracts your attention the most. It's colorful, I like that whole old cartoon vibe, and I think a lot of other people are going to follow suit on this one as well. For Outstanding Achievement in Art Direction, I'm going to go God of War Ragnarok. And I know I just said no spoilers, but spoilers! I think God of War is going to go home with a ton of awards, so don't be surprised if almost every single nomination that it's in for, I end up predicting it for. Now, obviously, as evident with the last category, that's not always the case, but for a majority of them, it will be. Outstanding Achievement in Character is kind of weak, I have to say. You have a lot of picks here that are picks from previous years. Atreus, Kratos, and Aloy, they've all been previously nominated. And I don't see Alejandro Vargas taking home the win here. The only one that I really haven't played, so I don't quite know the character, is Guybrush. So could he end up taking home the victory here? I truly don't know. If I were to pick out of these ones, I think Kratos probably has the best chance, and the only reason I'm hesitant to pick him is because he's won previously. So is that what people are going to think and they're going to go a different route? I don't know. All I know is you could have had better options that could have gone on to win. Why isn't the cat from Stray on here? You think that would be an obvious choice? They've nominated animals in the past, and more often than not, I think the animals go on to win. Elden Ring had a shit ton of great characters you could have included. How about Ronnie? How many people didn't choose her ending? So yeah, it's a weak category. Because of this, I'm just going to stick with Kratos, but I'm not 100% confident on it. For Outstanding Achievement in Original Music Composition, that's going to go to God of War Ragnarok. It's very obvious. If you look at other YouTubers who do video game content, they play the God of War theme in their background quite a bit. And I myself am one of them. So yes, I think this one's an easy victory. I think you could have nominated Elden Ring on here and I would have been a little bit more hesitant, though I probably still would have picked God of War, but there would have been more competition, I think, if those two had gotten in. But as it stands, I think this is an easy path for God of War. For Outstanding Achievement in Audio Design, also God of War Ragnarok. I don't really see anything else taking home the win. Maybe Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. DICE usually takes home this award with its Battlefield series, but ain't no way that last Battlefield's getting any nominations. So I think it's an easy step for God of War. Yeah, maybe Call of Duty can sneak home the win, or if they really want to go crazy, maybe a Plague Tale, but I'm not too confident in those other two. For Outstanding Achievement in Story, God of War Ragnarok. I know this is a broken record, but even though I wasn't the biggest fan of God of War Ragnarok's story, I know a lot of other people were, so I'm not going to take my own personal feelings into consideration here. I think it's going to go that route. Personally, I would go Elden Ring, but I get that its story structure isn't the typical story structure that a lot of people tend to like. And as such, I think there's a lot of people that can easily go through the game and not know anything about what's happening. So I think that's really what hurts it in terms of it winning. But personally, I think the individual stories are stronger in Elden Ring. But again, that's just me. For Outstanding Technical Achievement, Elden Ring. Yes, I'm going to switch it up here. I think Elden Ring can win this one, and I think it's all because of how the world operates and how smoothly everything transitions into one area from the next. And really, even God of War Ragnarok has areas where you're kind of squeezing through tight little corridors, and you can kind of tell, oh, okay, it's loading up the next area. And so it's not as seamless, I think, as Elden Ring. Plus with the enemies and all the creatures that are going about their everyday business. I mean, there's always something happening in that huge world. So for me, I think technically Elden Ring is the more impressive title. But I can see God of War maybe taking it home. I mean, if they're just going off of graphics alone, which they shouldn't, I can see that one still going home the victor. Now, for Action Game of the Year, you would think Vampire Survivors would take home the victory, right? And yes, that is technically what I'm predicting here, but I will mention that there's been many years prior that just because you're nominated for Game of the Year doesn't mean you win your individual categories, even in like overall genres like this one. So I can easily see like maybe Bayonetta 3 or Neon White sneaking the victory from Vampire Survivors. So yes, I am voting this route, but I'm not 100% confident. I've been burned before in the past, so I'm very hesitant to say, oh, this is a lock for sure. So take that into consideration if you also are doing predictions. Eventually, the Game of the Year is God of War Ragnarok. It's no competition. It's gonna go God of War Ragnarok. I'd be fucking shocked if anything else ended up taking the win here. Alright, so for Family Game of the Year, where the fuck is Kirby and the Forgotten Land? You put Dream Buffet on here, but you don't put Forgotten Land? There's just something wrong about that. Anyway, it's gonna go to Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I think a lot of people really enjoyed that one. It's the one out of all of these listed that I think got the most attention. It won at Jeff Keighley's Game of the Year in terms of its, what was it? It's RPG. So I think that just goes to show there's a lot of love for it. And I think that's just going to be the case with the industry as well. Now for Fighting Game of the Year, the one that ends up winning is usually the bigger franchise, the one that has multiple entries. And so you would think, oh, okay, well, that's got to go to the King of Fighters 15, right? Yes, I was going to go that route, but I can't help but think that Multiverses could come in and sneak the victory here. I've heard a lot of people really jumping into it, really liking it, sticking with it, and just giving it a lot of support. Although I should also mention that Rumbleverse has another nomination as well, so maybe that's a good indicator that that one will take home the win. Regardless, I like that we don't have some sort of like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter this year, just because I like it when smaller games tend to get the recognition. It always goes to the big one, and you know, the lesser ones ended up feeling like they end up feeling lesser, I guess, in other words. But yeah, I'm gonna go Multiverses on this one. I think there's been a lot of love for it, so I can see it going home with the win. Well, with no Forza for Racing Game of the Year, I guess this is more open than it usually is. I guess I should go Gran Turismo 7, but I'm gonna be honest, that game has a lot of bullshit in it. So that being said, I think Halo last year proved that sometimes they don't care that there's bullshit in it. They just go for what they personally like. So I could still see Gran Turismo 7 taking home the win, but I'm gonna go with Need for Speed Unbound instead. Maybe a little bit of a gamble, but I gotta shake things up here and there. Role-playing Game of the Year, Elden Ring. I can see nothing else taking it, just like with God of War and Adventure. So yeah, I think this is a done deal. Though, special shout out to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I think is a fantastic game, and I'll give this to the Keighley Awards. Well on them for nominating that for Game of the Year. That was a good surprise. Wish they had done that here, but it can't all be winners, I guess. Sports Game of the Year usually goes to the odd man out, the one that's unlike the typical sports games that come out every single year, which means that FIFA, MLB, and NBA probably won't go home with the win. Though it is worth noting that whenever one of these ends up going home with the win, it's usually FIFA, and FIFA is nominated for another award. So who knows, maybe that means that there's a shot that it could go home with the win here. But for me, it's either got to come down to Mario Strikers Battle League or Ollie Ollie World, and seeing as Mario is the bigger franchise, I'm gonna go that route. What? No Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope in the Strategy Simulator Game of the Year? Pshaw! That being said, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna go home with the win here. Dwarf Fortress is the best reviewed out of them all, but I don't know how many people played it, so my thought process right now is it's got to go to either Marvel's Midnight Suns or Warhammer. Marvel's just recently came out, so maybe that has the advantage, but I'm not going to go that route. I'm going to go with Warhammer. I don't know. There's just something about it that makes me think it's going to go in with the win, but this is probably the category that I'm least confident in, so yeah, take that however you will. For immersive reality technical achievement, I'm going to go with Among Us VR. I don't know, taking that concept of the game and making a VR, there's got to be something impressive about that, right? I don't know. Again, just taking a shot here. I haven't really played many VR games as of late, so this is really another one that I'm just not too sure about. And yes, that also translates to Immersive Reality Game of the Year. I don't know. Maybe Moss Book 2, just because it's gotten quite a bit of nominations. Although, if I'm going for the best reviewed game, Cosmonius High is the one that ended up being highly scored. Everything else was just fine. So maybe I'll go that route. I'll be honest, I've gone multiple routes in the past where, oh, okay, I'll go with the one that's most nominated. Doesn't win. Alright, I'll go for the one that's highest reviewed. Doesn't win. So, yeah, your pick is as good as mine. I guess I'll just go, yeah, Cosmonius High. We'll go that route. Now, outstanding achievement for an independent game is very fascinating because, once again, you can say Vampire Survivors is going to win, and yes, I am going to vote that route, but I think this is easily one that any one of these could really sneak home a victory. I could see Neon White taking home the win. I can see Shredder's Revenge taking home the win. I feel out of all of them, though, Tunic probably has a really good chance of sneaking home the victory. The only reason I think it might not is because it came out like really early on in the year, so maybe a lot of people's minds don't remember it as well as they do, but I still see it mentioned on a lot of people's best of the year list. So who knows? I could easily see any of these taking home the victory. Doesn't necessarily goes to Vampire Survivors just because it's nominated for Game of the Year, but I am going to vote for Vampire Survivors because it's nominated for Game of the Year. So, there's that. Gotta go Marvel Snap for Mobile Game of the Year. I've heard a lot of really good things about it here. It's very addicting. Yes, there's some bullshit that just got introduced recently, but once again, as I mentioned, as a lot of the times the industry doesn't care about the bullshit. They'll still nominate and vote for you regardless. So I'm gonna go that route. I hope it doesn't end up going to Diablo Immortals. That one is really bullshit, so please not that one. Anything but that one. Yes, that's all I gotta say there. So I'm really conflicted with Online Game of the Year just because I think there's strong arguments to be made for any of these to take home the victory. Call of Duty has won multiple times in the past, so maybe it'll take home the win again this year, but really does it do anything so significantly special that is worthy of a win? Don't know. FIFA, sports game, getting nominated here, so does its online so strong that it goes home with the win here? Don't know. Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, you would think that one would go home with the victory, but Final Fantasy XIV has won this award in the past, so maybe they're not so quick to give it the award again. Who knows? Marvel Snap, as I just previously mentioned, a lot of people seem to really be digging that game and sinking a lot of time into it, so maybe that translates into the victory here. Don't know. And then, of course, Rumble Versus, as I said, fighting game also nominated here, so maybe that translates in the victory here. Ultimately, I'm just going to take a huge gamble here and go Marvel Snap. I think if you want to play it safer, you should go Call of Duty. That was my initial thought with this one, but fuck it. I want to take a risk here and just go Marvel Snap. I tend to get Outstanding Achievement in Game Design and Outstanding Achievement in Game Direction mixed up quite a bit. A lot of the times in the past, I'll nominate or predict, and then it ends up being the opposite. So, yeah, that's not good. From what I understand, game design, as its title says, is the design of the game. How well does the combat work, the technical achievement. So you're kind of taking a look at different aspects of the game rather than the overall package. And I think when you think of it that way, I think God of War Ragnarok is the one that goes home with the victory here. Meanwhile, for game direction, that's kind of how the world interacts with the player and how well everything seamlessly blends in together. And as I was mentioning in one of the previous nominations, I think with that huge open world and its ecosystem and how well you go from one area to the next seamlessly, I think Elden Ring is the better decision here. But again, I fucked this up in the past. If you don't want to take a risk in choosing something different, you can honestly just go God of War with both. You might get lucky and get them both, but at the very least, you should at least get one. Unless Elden Ring ends up taking them both, so maybe don't listen to me. And of course, Game of the Year. You guys have seen me break them down in my individual reviews, but let's go over everything just one last time. First and foremost, sorry Horizon Forbidden West, sorry Stray, I think you go home with nothing for the night. And the reason for that is because every single category that they are nominated in, either God of War, Elden Ring, or both of them are also nominated for. And I just don't think those two games do anything particularly better than those two games. So, sorry, but I just don't see you going home with anything. As for Vampire Survivors, I see it potentially going home with some, and I see it potentially going home with none. So we will see if it is a good night for Vampire Survivors or not. Game of the Year really does come down to Elden Ring or God of War Ragnarok. As I mentioned previously, I think God of War Ragnarok is going to go home with the most awards for the night. And I think its individual components are very well done. But as an overall package, I think Elden Ring is the stronger product. Plus, when you just look at the impact that it made, I think Elden Ring stayed on a lot of people's minds far longer than God of War Ragnarok. And don't get me wrong, God of War Ragnarok made a huge splash. There were so many people talking about it for a while, but I think Elden Ring definitely stayed on people's minds a lot longer. So for me, it has to go Elden Ring Game of the Year. Lock it in place. And those are my predictions for the 2023 DICE Awards. Yes, so by the time you're watching this video, the awards will be tomorrow, which I will be watching and recording a reactions video too. I will then release that video hopefully by the next day, but if I'm too busy, then definitely the day after that. Even if I fuck it up like last year, I like to at least get my final thoughts on the winners and the show and share it with you guys. So please keep a lookout for that video. Until then, stay safe out there and have a good one.